Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I have Dr. Jackie Henry from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Welcome to the show, Jackie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, that's okay. And I forgot to say, is it Monday? It's Monday, what, about
It's
5,
Monday.
5 p.m., 6?
Monday at 2:30 in the
Oh,
afternoon.
it's 12:30. Okay. So you're just easing your way into the week. I've hit
Yes.
Tuesday early morning and yeah, here we are. I haven't said this for a little bit, but it's so funny. And you would get this energetic thing. You're in the past, I'm in the future, and we're right now in the present. So I kind of like
Right.
that vibe. But
Yes.
Jackie, very excited to talk to you. A lot going on in the best possible way. So you're a licensed psychologist, and you're the founder of Mindful Connections of MN, which is a private practice.
Yep.
But most recently, and the idea was started to stir up or come up in COVID, and it makes complete sense because you're the co-founder of H&S Wellness Consultants, which is a
Right.
boutique consultancy that helps value-driven organizations in high-stress industries improve well-being and performance through evidence-based programs.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
also a mum. And you've
Yes.
got a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, and they're all girls, which are
That's right.
gorgeous, absolutely
Lots of
gorgeous.
conversation at our house.
So much conversation. I could
Yeah.
imagine the drama, the energy, the dancing,
All of it.
singing, all of like yeah, very.
That's right.
But tell us a bit about your journey and yeah, most recently being the co-founder of H&S Wellness Consultants.
Yeah, that I'm really excited to talk about that. That's where a lot of my energy and passion is going these days. In addition to learning dances from the Taylor Swift album that just came out. But yes, H&S Wellness Consultants was co-founded with myself and my partner, Dr. Heidi Strohmeyer. We met each other the very first staff psychologist job I had, and she was finishing up her training. And we stayed in touch over the years. That was over 10 years ago now.
Wow.
But during COVID, we were asked to do some consulting for veterinary medicine, which is not something that I had really identified as a target audience for my
No.
psychology work necessarily. But once we got to learn about that industry, it really pulls people who have real compassionate hearts, feel very purpose driven about serving animals and helping animals. And they were experiencing a lot of burnout and compassion fatigue during COVID when pet parents were separated from their animals during routine
Yeah.
procedures or surgeries. Um, so it was very stressful on the animals, on the pet parents, and on the people who were providing that health care. And so we were brought in to sort of help with stress management and assertive communication. Under stress, we don't typically have our best communication skills. And so they were
No.
experiencing a lot of that. And after about a year and a half of doing that informally, Heidi and I decided that maybe there's something here. We had sort of been asked by a couple other clinics as well. Maybe there's something here that we can do really more formally. This was also a time that I think a lot of people share in COVID where it was a time for space and reflection of, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my career, my professional life? And for me, I love individual therapy, but sort of the thought of doing that and private practice really is hard to scale. It's one client at a time.
Yeah.
And so it allowed me to have the space and the pause to say, where do I really see myself in the next 10, 20 years of my professional life? And consulting felt like a really good way to have a sustainable career in the same lane that I had been working with, and do it in a way that was sustainable for me to do, where it wasn't the emotional labor that individual therapy really can be.
Yeah. So interesting. Like, yeah, that the whole veterinary piece, like
Yeah,
I hadn't put that together at all. Hadn't thought of it myself.
that's right.
When you talk around the pet parent, and I love that, I'm a pet parent, but like the
Yeah.
stress of their little, fur baby or, fur animal being at the vet, well, who were you working with? Were you working with the veterinarians and the nurses, or were you working with the parents as well? Like, how was that? Like, which bit were you working with,
Yeah.
or were you working with both?
We could definitely start another branch of our consulting business working with pet parents, but for this purpose, we were working with the clinic staff.
Yeah, okay.
So it really was helping them manage maybe difficult conversations that they were having with anxious pet parents, or, sometimes COVID brought out some bad behavior in all of us. And so how to use assertive communication in a way that held your boundary, but also communicated your empathy for the animal
Yeah.
and for your client there. So we were working only with staff. But really, once we started that, we really felt like, okay, we are come from a profession in which we are values driven, and we are often experiencing compassion fatigue when we're dealing with the heaviness of the human condition, right?
Yeah.
But there are other industries that really go into that work with a meaning and purpose, not just veterinary medicine, but other healthcare workers. We worked with financial planners who are often sort of doing a little bit of therapist work with people who are managing their financial anxiety or dealing with their dreams or goals. We were trying to partner with educators and nonprofits. So, really honing our niche in the mission driven,
Yeah.
values oriented,
Perfect.
high stress sort of industries.
Yeah. And what are you seeing as the most high stress at the moment? Is it the economy? Like, what are you seeing as the biggest stress factors? I mean, obviously, COVID
Yeah.
was a lot of chaos. We were, I come from the world's longest lockdown. Melbourne continued
Yeah.
that.
Right.
And you look at Melbourne now and Victoria, and it's just, we're a mess. It's a mess of a
Yeah.
state. Like, it is economically, it's not great at all. There's a lot of
Yeah.
fatigue still. I think there's still a lot of, it's a like just complexity to people. It was a long time. It was
For
5 years
sure.
ago now, right? Like, it was, so it wasn't, well,
Yeah.
we were in it for 2 years, but yeah, there's still so much unsaid, I think, around what
Yeah.
what the hell was that? What happened? Do you know what I mean? And so then
Yes, I do.
stress of, well, what does it look like going forward? And, there's grief around the old world that I had, and it's no longer exists anymore. So, yeah, what sort of
Yeah.
high stress are you
Well,
dealing with?
you just did a great roundup right there. But I agree. I mean, the human brain, just in general, really doesn't like uncertainty.
No,
And so that causes distress. And I think when you're dealing with uncertainty on a lot of different levels, I mean, think about the pace of technology change, which impacts the future of your job and what the economy might look like. That impacts how you can provide for your family, or if you want to plan for a family, or the rising cost of healthcare, or just that there's so much information overload and opportunity for distraction, so that you wonder sometimes, what did I do today except just be on my phone? Or do I have real relationships, or do I have sort of these parasocial relationships, if you've heard that term, right? Where it's sort of living through people that you're connected with online, but might not necessarily translate into real life. So I think sort of the volume and the speed at which our brains are receiving stimulation and information is way more than we're equipped to deal with. And that in general is just really overwhelming. And then you have sort of the uncertainty of the economic and political landscape too. It's overwhelming out there.
yeah, it really is. You've landed some good points there, haven't you? It is overwhelming,
Yeah,
and we do not like uncertainty. We want to be able to control everything. It does
right.
scare me how much distraction there is in the world, and how much overload to the cognitive overload. And, I'm
Yeah.
all about the subtractive psychology, which you would no doubt be about, like, in terms of just that ability to just, you talked around, being able to pause and be present. I
Yeah.
just don't see a lot of that at the moment. Like, everyone's just like,
Yes, if you are just tugged along with the tide of a normal day and the opportunity for that overwhelm, you will be pulled into that. And so it really takes some intention and some mindfulness about how to put up those boundaries and those moments of pause and reflection for yourself. And it takes effort. And that's hard when you're tired or you're working hard or you're raising a family or working on a partnership or whatever. Like that takes effort and it's hard to do.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not easy.
Absolutely. So tell me about your evidence-based programs that, because obviously you're focusing on well-being and performance. And I'd love your thoughts around well-being because I think about well-being as like almost like a whole being, right? In terms of that
Yeah.
whole connecting back to the mind, body, and soul, or the spirit, or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, because we are so disconnected from who we are. I mean, I was in and through my burnout, and then I had to come back to myself. And then you look
Mhm.
at teams and they're completely disconnected and they're a living, breathing system. And then you look at a business or an organization and then it's all cascading, right? It's a domino effect.
Yeah.
What are your evidence-based programs? What are they doing to, I guess, connect people or connect teams and businesses back together?
Yeah, so we're from, the psychology academic world where there's a lot of emphasis on rooting in science, right? In data,
Yeah.
and that this is an ethical and responsible way to deliver care, is that it's rooted in science and some evidence base. And so that for us was sort of primary as we began to build our company. We're not just going out there and seeing sort of what's the zeitgeist of the day or sort of talking about, what feels good and things like that. We really want to be rooted in what is
Yeah.
effective and productive for teams. And so really it's important for us to think about how do we establish a framework of values, right? So we went into certain work because certain values drive us to do so. And now that we're in this work, can we reconnect and clarify, whether it's as an individual or as a team or an organization, what is the why? What is our purpose? And that provides a framework so that when things get muddy, when things get overwhelming, we can go back to those foundations and kind of view it as a roadmap. What's the next right step toward our values?
Yeah.
So that's one. That's sort of using acceptance and commitment framework. If you're familiar with that ACT, I actually wonder.
I
This
haven't
we
heard of
might
it.
need to cut that. It might be Australian, if I'm remembering from grad school. It's ACT therapy. And
I
there's a
think I
lot of
have.
also yeah, it's acceptance and commitment therapy. And so it talks a lot about clarifying values as a first step to really taking action toward your values
Yeah.
and reestablishing the sense of control, which is the only thing we can control is sort of our actions, right? And so it provides sort of a grounding orientation and then a roadmap of action plan. And so that's sort of a first step. And then we also work on self-management. So when we're talking about emotion-focused interventions at work, that might look like, how do I notice when I'm really disconnected from my body? When I get overwhelmed, I sort of leave my body and I'm up in my head. And then maybe only a stomach ache or chest tightness or something that's going to really signal to me that I need to get back into my body.
Yeah.
And so, how do I have self-awareness about how stress shows up in my body? And once I have that awareness, then I can do some interventions that really allow me to manage my stress so that it doesn't have to escalate into migraines, back pain, difficulty breathing,
Yeah.
panic attack, things like that to really get our attention.
Yeah.
And when we are able to manage ourselves and our emotion reactions, we can really be intentional about what our response is going to be so that it's not an emotion driven reaction.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things happen either in communication or communication breakdowns that are the result of emotional reactions versus, okay, I can tell that my blood's boiling a little. I'm going to pause, I'm going to ground myself, and then I'm going to respond in a way that reflects my values more.
That's so
And then I think,
interesting.
yeah. And then I think probably our third focus is connection, right? So we're a part of a team, we're a part of ecosystems, as you mentioned. And so what encompasses there is communication and leadership and these qualities of creating a psychological safe environment. That's a big evidence base in workplace organizational psychology, psychological safety.
Yeah.
And so things that you can do as a leader within your communication and your culture to create an environment where people feel supported and grounded and in a way that leads to greater creativity and contribution and productivity.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
those are some of the main themes that we really orient our work around, and try to do so with a groundedness in data and science.
Yeah, great. I love the data and science. I mean, it's absolutely I'm all about the flow science, the neuroscience, and the subtractive
Right. Yep.
psychology and also self-actualization. Sometimes
Mhm.
when the boat is leaky, the hull of the boat is leaky, you've got to fix those foundations before you can move into that growth, that evolution,
Absolutely.
transcendence, etc. How do you then measure it, Jackie? Like, quite often humans, you can give them all the training, all the tools. And you would see
Yeah.
this even from your private practice.
Mhm.
And they'll walk out the
Yes.
door and they're like, and I've seen psychologists over the years. The bit I
Mhm.
love that you're doing is you're putting the values into action. You're putting it into action. You're not just getting into story and then almost like, being stuck in story. There's actually a roadmap to work through to get out of your own head, to, like you say,
Yeah.
to self-regulate all of that.
Right.
How do you, yeah, how do you measure it? Like when you're going into an
Yeah.
organization, like, and
Mhm.
you're looking at them from assessing, okay, well, this is where they're currently at. This is where we need to get them to.
Right. Yeah, so we do like to have sort of an assessment process, which is often partly using sort of standardized instruments. We use one called the ProQual, which measures the levels of burnout. I'll often do a self-compassion scale because if we're more compassionate with ourselves, we usually report greater emotional resilience and emotional regulation skills, things like that. So sort of a nice window into someone's well-being or ability to be resilient. And then we do sort of we like to do employee satisfaction and engagement surveys as well to say what topics feel most relevant for you. What are some of the pain points or friction moments that maybe we can address through communication or reestablishing a standardized workflow. Once everybody's on the same page with our values as a clinic, we can really identify some of those friction points and put them within the framework of what we said is important to us as an organization and get some real solutions to really grease the wheel along some of those friction
Oh, I
points.
love that. Yeah, because you absolutely need the real solutions, don't you, to be able to
Yeah,
eat back into practice, which is that
yeah,
that performance piece. You,
right.
you just mentioned something, and I was going to ask you a question about that, and I've just lost my train of thought. So it'll come back to me. I know it will.
Sure.
Burnout. There it is. It came to
Yeah.
me. The burnout test. Like, I mean, are you seeing a lot of burnout in the practices you're working with? Like, is it more prevalent than ever? Like, even from a private practice perspective, and now 3 years into your own consultancy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, burnout is really rampant in a lot of industries, not just values-driven one, but I think to some of the things we talked about before is that, we can have some compartmentalization between our professional and our personal lives, but ultimately we're the same person that's showing up to that.
100%.
And so I really think, as you're saying, sort of the whole person, the whole system when this is happening in sort of our civic and our personal lives of the uncertainty and the overwhelm, that has to go into our work lives. We're the same people, right? And so, sort of chicken or the egg, is it the work or is it the life? I don't really know, and I don't know that we will know, but it sort of all contributes to a feeling that everyone's having, most people are having, of feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And when that is sort of a consistent way that you're showing up in the world without that rest, without that rejuvenation or space, that leads to burnout.
Yeah.
Certainly we've all had days or weeks that feel overwhelming, but when that lingers on and that becomes sort of a way of life without pause, that's when we get to sort of a burnout
Yeah.
stage.
And it's the stress. It's the stress. It's the long-term build-up
Yeah.
of the stress of it, right? Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think, I mean, it's a big question. Do you think that the overwhelm is going to settle anytime soon, or do you think this is just the world we're in now? I've got a point of view on it, but I'd love to get your thoughts from a psychology perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think for what I'm hearing anecdotally and what I'm realizing personally is that the amount of stimulation through news and information is unsustainable and has had negative effects. And so I do think that people, as they've lived with technology and the speed of information and lived through the stress of the last several years, politically, globally, the pandemic, it's not sustainable. You see the impact, whether it's your sleep or your relationships or your ability to focus. I mean, how many people do you hear from that are like, I used to be able to read a book and I cannot focus on a book anymore.
Yeah.
And I just think people are coming to the realization that the way that we have been consuming information and pushing off sort of that spaciousness, that real connection with people, that has an impact. And it's a negative one for most people.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I mean, the world's not going to change in terms of it's going to continue to be
Right.
constantly changing. It's going to continue. Like, this is the world, I feel like now in this
This is the
uncertainty.
world.
This is
Yeah.
the world from an uncertainty perspective. But like you're saying, like I've had this conversation a bit. I don't want to feel like I'm repeating myself, but even AI at the moment, like you go into ChatGPT to kind of solve something or help you solve something, and it's the thinking one. The five is just throwing more and more at you, and I'm at a point where I'm like, I say to it now, can you
Yeah.
just stop?
Yeah.
Stop giving me more
Yeah.
information. I asked you
Right.
one thing. Like I'm starting like
Right.
it's because it's just overload, and I hadn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like it's too much. Like we have to learn to like it's that whole powering up and powering
Yeah.
down in the mornings. Like,
Yes.
like it's just how do you power yourself up? So you're starting your day from a place of wholeness. How you starting from a place of interconnection rather
Yes.
than jumping straight on your phone, checking everything, reading all the doom
Yeah.
and gloom from social media or, the
Yeah.
news or whatever. Like, how do you just, that's kind of what I've really been focusing on because it's just so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, we should not be putting our effort to rewind the present and into the past because there's no putting the genie back in the bottle, right? This
No.
is where we are, as you're saying. But I do think that it is, people need to decide, there needs to be an impetus for change. If people are not motivated to change, then they won't, right? And sometimes we get motivation through inspiration, like, "Ooh, I want to be like that person." Sometimes we get motivation from like, this is not working and something needs to change, and I don't like to change and I don't want to work on it, but my alternative is not serving me anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that might be where a lot of people are at of like, okay, I can't keep this up, or I'm letting things slide, or I don't have the meaningful relationships I wanted to have at this point in my life, or whatever it might be. A lot of our motivation for change will often come from, okay, the way I've been doing it just isn't working.
No. Yeah. And you get to that point. Tell me, I've got a
Yeah.
couple of questions for you, but tell me with regards to just talking about all of this, when you're working with the different business teams or the leaders, do you ever recommend that some respite? Like, do you ever like, I mean, you've got to be careful, right? Like I know with all the stuff I had, there were times when people were like, myself included, but I kept going
Mhm.
stupidly. But it was, you need some time out. You need a couple of days off, or you need to like, do you
Yeah.
ever make those recommendations to the business in terms of, yeah, just
Yes,
time?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think sometimes what we find is that people have PTO and they're not using it. And when you're burned out, you feel like you're caught in this cycle of, I can't step away from it
Yeah.
because I'm anxious
That was
when I
me.
can't turn it off, right?
That was
And
me.
so our job is to work with not just the individual, but the culture around that to say, you as a leadership team, are you modeling taking time for yourself? Are you making it PTO mandatory? Are you making it easy so that when people step away, that there's a system of, who's covering your work so that you're not coming back to a mountain where now that feels like it's not worth it, right? So it's not just about the individual. It certainly does have to be about the individual knowing when their limits are and how they know they can need a break, right? Like, what are my signs and symptoms that I need a break? But it also needs to be about the culture of the organization. And that
Right.
often starts at the top, where it's like, what things do we have in place to really encourage and support, not just with words, but with actions that this is a part of a sustainable work culture and organization is that you do need to take the time that is offered to you.
Yeah.
So we see that a lot.
Yeah. I love that you'll keep bringing up this action piece because, you can have
Yeah,
shiny values on a wall, but if they're not put into action, there's
absolutely.
just no point in them. What about leaders? What about businesses? Like you would have come across this probably before where you've had this resistance to what you're doing because they see
Hmm.
wellness and, is kind of fluffy or like, we don't need
Hmm.
this with you. This is always the way it's been. We've got
Hmm.
multiple generations now in business,
Yes,
in teams. So you've got the older generations, the younger generations, very different values, very different
absolutely.
purposes, mission.
Yep.
How do you respond? How do you handle those sorts of situations? I'm always intrigued, like in terms of because I get it. Like at times I'll
Yeah.
get this utter resistance, but generally they're the ones that need the most amount of like
Yes.
work on themselves to
Yes.
be done, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are actually offering a workshop right now that we were in development because we started seeing this theme pop up when we would do assessment and sort of working on separate skills and strategies of the navigating the generational differences. And we're doing a workshop on that we're offering leadership teams right now. And it's been really interesting. People are very intrigued. And we really want to come from the place of not sort of negging on the boomers or Gen Z. Like, we don't want to necessarily fall into the stereotypes of one is better or not. We want to serve this from like, what are the strengths and the challenges of both? And where is the communication that we can really center so that you meet in those same values, but might come at it from a different perspective and being able to lean on each other's strengths in that way and see it from a different perspective. I mean, the diversity of perspective what makes you a sustainable and dynamic organization. And so, how can you value both of those vantage points? But sometimes it gets lost in translation. And so, our work has been how do we get really clear about our values, both on both sides of the generational continuum? And how do we really explore what that looks like from those two different vantage points and see it as an opportunity rather than a frustration, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Now, from my position, who is often calling us in is one end of the generational spectrum because they're often in the leadership positions. And so we speak to just what I said, that the diversity of
Yeah,
generational perspectives is a sustainable way to grow and scale and keep your business relevant, right? You need them just like they need you.
yeah, great.
And how can also you're in a position of passing on your life lessons in a way that doesn't feel condescending, but also provides direction and mentorship. And
Yeah,
that's a great gift too. And so, we want to work with those leaders to be able to pass on their lived experience in a way that is resonating, not as a way that leads with an eye roll of you don't get it, right?
yeah. It's back to this
So I think
communication.
yeah, and really we hope that our respect for both of those vantage points shines through, and that's maybe modeling for those teams as well. That
Yeah.
this isn't about dragging either one, it's about understanding and more clear communication around it.
It, so true. When you book the pod and I asked the question around what's one unique insight or lived experience and in life leadership and or business, you said starting my own private practice and then building a wellness consulting business. But the
Mhm.
last sentence was trying to find my leadership ethos.
Yes,
Can you
I know
quickly?
it's happening for me too. So
Yeah,
it's this interesting parallel process of me and my partner helping leaders with better communication, with clarifying their values, with taking really micro steps of action that are in the direction of their values, but over time add up to this culture, right? It's not coming in and doing an overnight thing. It's one little action at a time. And I think when I've been developing my own leadership style, I'm just finding my way. And certainly I want to be a real, authentic person. I want to be true to who I am and what my strengths are. But also, like, I need to know where my areas of growth are and where my perception of how I'm coming across or how I'm communicating might not be landing the same way, or how to be more intentional about communicating what's important to me as I grow our business. My partner and I we share sort of a similar vision for our business, but we have very different strengths. And so learning to work with her and know, okay, how does she receive information? How do I prefer to receive information? How do we make sure we're really clear on what's important to us as we grow this business? And then we recently brought on an intern and a couple contractors, other psychologists who might go out and deliver our menu of services. This is part of our scaling plan, which is really exciting to us. But in the midst of that, it's like, okay, I really need to have a clear and crisp leadership style that communicates what I want, what my vision is, what our vision is, but is also effective and maybe has some boundaries at sometimes, right? And so putting that into practice has felt overwhelming, but also really energizing. And I think what I'm honing in on is sort of the value set of relationships and collaboration. I really feel that if it's not enjoyable to be a mentor, be a partner, be a collaborator, then what am I doing this work for?
Yeah.
Right? It is about the relationships for me. And so, how do I be relational in all of my interactions, even the hard ones, right?
Yeah.
That's been sort of a centering principle for me. I think also like inspiring, like let's have fun, let's bring some humor, let's be exciting, let's come on, throw your idea out there, like let's see what we got, so
Yeah, I love
it
that. It's so
feels
good. Yeah.
energizing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's bringing
because
your
I
best.
don't know it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's the thing. We're always where it's like like you called it out before. I'm all about it. Life, leadership, and business still interconnected.
Yeah.
It's how you show up as your authentic self, and I think that's what you need in leadership as well. Like, for
Mhm.
too long and for so long, we were told like you have to behave like this, you have to dress like
Mm.
this, you have to look like you have to do all of this, and it's in
Hmm.
a little box, and it's like who says?
Hmm.
So for me, it's like how are you bringing your most authentic self to your role? And
Yeah.
I talk about it being soulful. You know, you,
Yeah.
you need the presence, you need the
Lovely.
purpose, you need the performance, you need your people.
Yes,
And
that's
so
lovely.
how do you show up with all those? And so I think you've called it out in terms of it should be somewhat effortless. Like it should be fun. It should be generating ideas.
Right.
Having the interns, and I've just put somebody on myself as well, and he's 23 and I'm 48, and he's coming on a few hours a week to support me with all this
Yeah.
podcast content and a few other things,
Yeah.
but it's like already like I'm learning from him and he's learning from
Oh, yeah.
me, and I love
Yeah.
it because like
Yes.
and we're just humans at the end of the day. So
Yes.
it's that top down. It's kind of like, no, it's just like, but it's setting your expectations, like being clear on,
Yeah.
but then he's got ideas. So I think that's what makes, but we're always working on our leadership. And there's times when you'll go home, you're like, oh, I should have handled that differently. I should have done that differently.
Yeah.
But I think we can beat
Yeah.
ourselves up.
Absolutely. I mean, when self-compassion is a main cornerstone of my work in individual therapy and also in my organizational consulting, because it's something I've had to really work on. I think like many people who are type A or ambitious or productivity focused, like it's sort of like, well, if I'm not hard on myself, then I can't trust that I'll get things done, right? And so I've really had to relearn that because I have had the negative effects of self-criticism.
Yeah,
That it sticks with you or you go down a shame spiral or all those things. And
100%.
here I am sort of preaching this to other people. And if I'm not practicing that myself, that feels inauthentic to me. And I have had to work on that skill of being compassionate with myself and really learn like, no, the ambition doesn't go away, the productivity doesn't go away. I just save myself a lot of time down in the shame spiral, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. I
So,
went down the shame spiral
yeah,
yesterday, funnily enough, because I'd worked till, and it's practice what you preach, right? Like, it totally,
yeah,
I'm in the high performance, inside out transformation space. And here I am working till 1:30 in the morning on Sunday night. I just had to get some
yeah,
stuff done. And I didn't start till
yeah,
9. And I was so
yeah,
tired yesterday. And I went into that
yeah.
shameful spiral of, here you go again. You're back to working like you've always done. You can't stop.
Right.
Da, da, da. But then yesterday afternoon, I had this beautiful little puppy who just wanted to go and play. And then I took him to the park at
Mm,
4:30 and we were there till
mm,
6. And I was like, you know what? I wasn't stressed.
yeah,
I wasn't thinking, I've just got to keep going. And
right.
and even then last night, I just was like, last night was a lot. I'm just tired.
Mhm.
Whereas once upon a time, I wouldn't have done that. So
Absolutely.
there's a
I
change.
mean, getting older and wiser is a good thing. And I think that is one thing that I'm really starting to embrace in my 40s is sort of the balance, the compassion towards self, the reminders of what's truly important, the forcing of myself to rest when I just want to
Keep
do
going.
more,
I know.
right? Yeah.
You're
But
better for it.
it's good. It's
Yeah,
good to do.
it's good. Last question, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Back to the girls. Four
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
How do you juggle it all? Like you're taking a lot on. Like I know on days energetically when I've absorbed a lot, and when you're
Mhm.
working in this space,
Mhm.
and then you've got your four girls, high energy, dancing to the new Taylor Swift album. Like,
Yeah.
how do you actually ensure that you have those moments for yourself? I like to call it active recovery. How do you find
Yes.
and ensure it becomes something that's really important so that you're showing up your full self to
hmm
your girls, your full self at work?
hmm
It's sometimes you're not, and then it's just like.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I think I've got it right, something shifts, right? So it is an active and dynamic process of keeping things in balance. And I don't always get it right. And I'm not perfect at home or at work. And I think um, really being able to embrace like I need to be flexible and adaptive where I thought I made this plan and you know what? Turns out that's not going to work for me anymore. Okay, I got to figure that out real quick and readjust. So, flexibility and adaptability.
Love it.
Also, the calculus of expanding my wellness consulting business rather than building more of a private practice, that really had this balance idea in mind. I know that my choice to have a big family, that also it means that I might need to, I'm only one person. There's only 24 hours in a day. And these kids require a lot. And the way that I want to show up as a parent also requires a lot and a partner to my husband. And so the emotional labor required for individual therapy is a lot.
Yeah.
And I had to make a calculus. Do I see myself scaling my individual therapy practice over the next 25 years when my kids are going to be teens and go off to college and, bigger kids, bigger problems
Yeah, I
sort
was
of a
about to
thing,
say
right?
lots more to contend with.
Yes, yes. And so, I'm not changing diapers anymore, but I do feel like the emotional labor side of raising grade school and adolescent, preteen kids is a lot more than even I expected. Even though I know the developmental spectrum and the milestones and all of that. So I think the calculus to say I need to scale this business that is still within my lane of expertise but doesn't have the emotional depth and therefore the emotional labor requirement, that was a real intentional choice for me. And so I'm excited to see where that's going. And also, I do need to remember it's just work, like
Love it.
what
So
am I going
good.
to feel good about at the end of my life? It's about experiences and my relationships and being outside and I do have non-negotiables. I exercise is one for me that I just know if I go
Same.
too long without it, I am not well. So really thinking about what are my non-negotiables and what are my values when I look back and how can I do that in these micro mo actions and also that know that those add up to sort of living a values-driven life, right?
Yeah, so good. Jackie, what would be one piece of advice you would give a business team or a leader
Mm.
who was struggling with their communication
Yeah.
and they were
I
coming
would,
at it from a place of stress? What would be one piece of
sure.
advice you would give them?
I would say the one piece of advice I would give him is to tune into themselves first. So I can give you some language that you can go deliver, but if you are in an activated stress state, that is not going to go well. So if you can put your own oxygen mask on, if you can be grounded from a place of what's important to me here, the words will come and the tone will come, and you will be able to lead and communicate from a place that is grounded in your values versus a reactivity place. And that is much more sustainable for you and for the people who are receiving your communication as well.
Amazing. It's been such a joy talking to you. How do we find out more about your consulting business? You,
Mhm. Yes. So please look us up at hswellnessconsultants.com. There's also a link to our individual psychotherapy practices there too, but you can see more about our work, working with organizations and mission-driven, values-driven organizations. I also do a Substack that is really based in the bridge between my personal and my professional life. I talk a lot about the principles that we've talked about today: self-regulation, self-compassion, values, clarity of action, micro steps. I talk about that in terms of little micro moments of my own life where I'm trying to walk the walk. So you
love
can
it.
find me at Less Thinking, More Living on Substack
Love that.
and on Instagram at Dr. Jackie Henry.
Awesome. Okay. I've got just written that down so that I can, with my bad
Yeah.
writing, last thinking more moving. I'll look at it later and go, I don't remember what that was
Yes,
after,
please
after
do.
this podcast. Jackie, it's been such a joy talking to you. Loved every
You
second of this
too.
conversation. Yeah, I mean, Bee Formless, we're all about the life leadership business and how do you interconnect it? How do you get how do you get people to shine their brightest by, feeling
Mm,
and performing at their best, all grounded in
yeah.
everything you're talking about. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Hopefully, you get a little bit of
Yes.
time before the girls get home and come on singing and dancing
Yes.
through the front door.
That's right. We're going to take my little pup for a walk and clear my mind and turn a page to be now mom at home. So that's
Yeah.
that's what my rest of my day will be.
Yeah, I'm about to take mine for a coffee, although he's sound asleep right now. So he'll wake up as soon as
Yeah,
I go, do you want to go for a walk?
right. Well, I hope you get some good puppy cuddles, and
Yeah.
thank you so much for this conversation, Bea, and for all the positive energy you're putting out in the world as well.
No, thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the walk. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks.